Hola, Jose. How are you?
I'm fine.
Can you please turn your camera on?
Yeah, sure. Will do.
Because like that you appear here next to me. So all to the audience. Also, thank you for sticking. Great view, Jose. You're a lucky man. I would use that pool myself. Okay, so we are starting the second webinar. So I'm here with José Del Barrio, founding partner of Samaipata, our co-investor in Spain, but a Spanish-based VC. He was offline that was sold to the Rocket Internet, so a B2C company, and continue working as an investor in the area. So he lives in Madrid, father of 4. I can imagine this quarantine at home. And also interesting fact of doing Ironman. So it's a busy schedule during the day, and thank you again for taking the time to do this 45 minutes with us. So I will give you the word for an initial presentation. So the idea here is to talk about disruption in B2C. So first we started with B2B, now focusing a little more on the B2C side. Then we'll have, after this initial presentation, some questions and answers that I have also from our side, and then let the audience, of course, here in the Q&A ask the questions that you want. We have here in our panel founders from the portfolio, also LPs, some other co-investors, and we are also recording the meeting to then be able to share with all the founders, because this is also busy times for everyone. So let's start. Jose, I'll pass you the word, and we continue.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me here. Please let me know if you can hear me well, and if not, let me know. So as I said, it is a pleasure to be here today with all of you guys. As Francisco said, we've been working together for already a number of years, and we are glad to be here today and sharing some thoughts. And in this case, I will do a very extremely brief presentation of myself, and then I will jump into the topic. As Francisco said, I'm the founder partner at Samaipata. Right now, we are running our second fund. It's a 100 million euro fund. We invest in platforms. We raised the first fund in 2015, and before that, I used to be the founder of La Negra Roja, which is what used to be a platform itself. So it's been already 10 years working on platforms. It's what we do. Platforms and marketplaces. We do both B2C and B2B. And today we're going to be talking about how we see the B2C landscape globally, more specifically in Europe. This is a very interesting topic these days because of coronavirus and COVID. And I was telling one of our investors in the morning that 2 weeks after launch or the outbreak happened, we sent a letter to our LPs, and we told them that even the public markets were plummeting. Everything looked like the end of the world, and everything was like super negative and pessimistic. We sent a letter 2 weeks after, and we said, look guys, what we think is that this could have a net to positive impact in our portfolio and also in our thesis. As we saw at that time, and And since then, every single data point that we are gathering from our portfolio and from the market is pointing in that direction, is that we are seeing COVID as the great accelerator. So basically what we see is that there are a number of fundamental trends, pre-existing trends that were already happening in the last 25 years that have been dramatically accelerated because of COVID. That's the way we see. It's not much a change in the course of action. It's not like drastic change in direction. It's rather an acceleration of pre-existing trends, both in B2B and B2C, but we are going to be today talking about more B2C. So we were kind of bold 2 weeks after the outbreak, but right now we are not bold anymore. I think it's becoming more and more a consensus that is the what is happening. Today I'm gonna be focusing on a handful of them, the ones that I think are more related to B2C and have probably a more direct impact on our investments these days. So as you can imagine, I'm going to be talking about what is happening in e-commerce, the future of work that has in between B2C and B2B. There's one topic about China's tech supremacy. I think it's something that it's going to get accelerated also because of this. E-learning, telemedicine, or what we call home as a castle. So at-home entertainment that's gonna it's experimenting a profound change. So those are more or less the topics I'm gonna be covering very quickly. So each of those. So let's start from the one that is like more macro. And it's about China's tech supremacy. That's something that has been happening in the last 20 years. Is that the market share that China has in the tech world it's increasing very quickly. Both the market share in terms of R&D spending, but also the share in venture capital investment. As many other indicators that we've been tracking. And for the first time in 2020, what is happening is that the R&D investment in China is already higher than in the US. Quantum computing filings, patent filings, the number is higher in China than in the US. The VC funding, it's catching up, it's almost as high as in the US. And consumer tech, at least to us, is becoming, China is becoming the reference in consumer. It's no longer Silicon Valley guys. We are seeing that clearly in gaming. We are seeing that in social commerce. Live streaming social commerce is way more developed in China. And there has been a fair recently. They are selling like crazy in the last couple of weeks, and we are probably going to be looking at China more as we used to look at Silicon Valley as the reference for many topics, specifically for consumer techs. That's one example that I usually refer to is what we call the rise of super apps. That is something that's quite nascent in Europe, quite nascent even in the US. Probably Uber is the one that is pushing that kind of hard. But in China, that's no longer news. And they have a very flourishing ecosystem of programs that are developing super apps and chat-based super apps as the one that, for instance, Tencent is growing quite quickly. So the social commerce and the rise of super apps, all those things are concepts that are way more developed in China, and we think are long-term trends. And so all in all, again, this was something that was happening before, but this, as the tech war is going to get accelerated because of this health crisis, we understand that this phenomenon is also going to be more obvious in the next 5 to 10 years. So we are going to be looking more and more towards China instead of Silicon Valley as a role model. I mean, so that's the first thing that we are quite interested about, and we are doing some research in that direction. The second interesting topic is less macro, is more micro, if you like. It's what it comes to e-commerce penetration. So as you may know, the internet was invented or became mainstream 25 years ago, approximately. Most categories in the e-commerce space have gone from 0 to around 20-30%. It depends on the category, from 10 to 20-30%, depending. Electronics is high, books is higher, groceries is lower, but in between those numbers. With COVID, what has happened is many categories, such as, for instance, the co-investment we have with Francisco, which operates in the flower space. It took the market to shift to online 10%. So to get to 10% online penetration, it took it 25 years to get there. All of a sudden, overnight, because of COVID, online penetrations went from 10% to 100%. And that's something that we're seeing in many categories. Groceries, for instance, that hasn't gone to 100%, but it has gone to 70-80%. And the category, the whole category, has become much bigger, has got way bigger in a matter of weeks because of this shift, this offline to online shift. And that's very, very interesting. It's going to represent enormous opportunity in the next few years. First, because the demand, a massive amount of demand has been created all of a sudden, but also because, especially in the platforms that we typically invest, because of that spike in demand, you brought a lot of supply that otherwise would have taken you years to acquire. So once you acquire that supply, even if post-COVID the demand drops, that supply is already in the platform. You have already created the liquidity, and we're seeing that. And this brings me to the next topic in telemedicine, for instance. So there's a very big platform in France called Doctolib. It's a marketplace for doctors that they've seen a tremendous spike in demand. And because of COVID, many people don't want to get out from home. They don't want to go to hospital because they are afraid of catching any disease, or maybe because they are not allowed to. So teleconsultation, chat-based consultation, all sort of telemedicine has grown dramatically. What is interesting is that in that process of growth, you've been able to acquire a lot more supplies, so doctors, hospitals, physicians. When the demand goes down in the next few weeks, the supply will be already there. So you've created massive liquidity, and some of them will remain in the platform. That will definitely boost growth in the next few years. That is also another pattern that we are seeing, and it's gonna have the consequence also of a lot of money, a lot of capital flowing to those markets. Another category in the B2C world that is it's between B2C and B2B, and it's one of our theses in the fund, or our favorite themes in the fund, is the future of work. Obviously, that tap into more the B2B. Most of the business around that are more related to B2B, but I think it's going to have also a profound change in consumer behavior. So just to give you a couple of data points, approximately 50% of the workforce in developed countries that could work from home before COVID. Only 50% of workforce before COVID could work from home, but only 10% of those were working from home. So 10% of the people that could work from home was working from home. All of a sudden, that number has gone from 10% to 100% in developed countries. So as you can imagine, that has a profound impact in consumer behavior around that. So commuting and the way you behave at home, more time at home, etc., that is gonna have also a profound impact on consumers. The other segment or market that we are actually doing a bunch of work about is learning, education. So that's something, again, nothing of what I'm saying is new. It's just that because of COVID, there's going to be a strong why now for many of these solutions that before maybe there was not a critical mass, there was not enough consciousness about the importance, etc., etc. And we are seeing now in our portfolio companies that that's something that is increasingly obvious. Not obvious, but big the opportunity. Well, with regards to e-learning, for instance, we are seeing, just to give you a couple of data points that you are gonna, well, at least for me was shocking. So around the world, because of COVID, 1.3 trillion students have been sent home to study from home, and 65 million of teachers have been sent home. So as you can imagine, this is gonna have a massive impact on adoption rates with regards to technological solutions for learning, especially when schools, universities, colleges, all of those institutions are prescribing to their current customers their competitors' products, because e-learning is somehow, for many cases, is the competitor of the physical education. So what is happening is a physical education institution is prescribing to their current customers for a number of months their competitor's product, which is e-learning somehow. So that adoption curve is being prescribed at the, let's say, the traditional solution, which is something that probably has never happened before, and it's going to have a huge impact on the e-learning landscape. We are quite sure of that. Probably the last topic before we enter into the most interesting part, which is the Q&A side of things. It's the what we call home as a castle, everything related to at-home entertainment. Again, this is something that is new. So streaming services such as Netflix, Disney Plus, all those, plus all kind of gaming and live streaming services. We are fortunate. We have a couple of investments, 3 investments that are related to those markets: streaming, live streaming, and gaming, and are booming right now, skyrocketing. And it's because of obviously the amount of time that people are spending now at home is a multiple of what they used to, and that is driving consumer spending, number of all the eyeballs, as you know, both Snap, Facebook, all those have reported in their earnings calls recently way more engagement, way more MAUs. People are spending way more time in social apps, but also in these kind of services because of this change in behavior. Well, again, we think that during this period of time, for instance, in the models that we invest in our platforms, this shock in demand will also have an impact on the supply side of the platform. And when the demand goes down, that will be reduced when we are all allowed to go back to a normal. The liquidity will be already there, or at least the supply side will be already there. So that will have a tremendous impact on the size of these platforms, and that's quite positive. And yeah, obviously there will be also challenge because of this. I'm not going to hide that. For instance, the access to financial markets it's probably going to be tougher, and there will be other challenges. But I think those few topics that I just mentioned summarizes a little bit where we see the opportunities moving forward, and also because of COVID.
Jose, thank you very much. Great insights. And maybe I'll dig into a little bit into that. I have here indication of my connection being unstable, so if you don't hear me, please let me know. Just starting with regarding China, it's interesting that you talk about that. Of course, it's a very high potential, but I still see it hard for our region to get more in touch with China. So here from companies from Iberia, even Europe, are you pushing into that? So seeing the potential in that region, because it's easier to go to Silicon Valley, even if it's probably much more expensive, but you see more that flux to China. Well, there's basic cultural differences that are barriers. So are you trying push for that opportunity?
Yeah, well, for now, I don't see, at least we don't see it that much as demand side kind of opportunity. I was explaining what is happening and what we should bear in mind moving forward. But for now, I'm more referring to that more as a way to look into the future. When we wanted to look into the future in this first 20 years of the century, we used to look at Silicon Valley. What are these guys doing? Let's see what Facebook is doing, or VR, or these guys. It's like they were 5 years ahead of us, or a few years ahead of us. What I'm saying is that is I think that it's going to be less and less the case. It's going to be way more. That role is going to be more the Chinese role moving forward. Obviously, Silicon Valley is an amazing hub of talent, an amazing pool of capital, and also for us as Europeans, it's hard to go to the US, but even harder go to China as of now. But I think it's important to understand where the innovation is happening in each of the verticals, and really understanding that the gravitational center is no longer Silicon Valley in the consumer tech. I think that's important.
Yeah, and it makes sense. We are still, I believe there's also opportunities. We will start seeing some big Chinese investors coming into Europe. There are some movements, but it's still not like, at least in my perspective, a real trend. But that will be also an opening. I don't know if you see a lot of investors already in the market, Chinese in your companies, but that can also be a bridge to go to China. So I will pose my second question. We have also here questions from the audience, but also regarding this trend and as you said, we have seen it in some companies, the positive effects, if we can say, of COVID. So normally in the markets, we are talking about the V shape and the U shape or W shape. In our case, maybe we can talk in the inverted V shape and the inverted U shape. So my question would be, so if you see some stickiness in this adoption, so how are you also advising your companies to benefit from this increase? Because of course some of that was done because people need to stay at home. But how do you see it going forward? Maybe not in the short term, but in the more medium term, 2-3 years.
Well, this is a very, there's big debate about, it's a very interesting topic that we discuss in a company per company basis. Should you play offense? Should you play defense in this specific situation? That very much depends on how much capital do you have, and also so how is COVID affecting your specific business? That definitely is one of the drivers that will determine your how much capital you will be able to access in the last couple of years. So that's one variable. So it's how is your business affected by COVID, but the other one is how the macro environment is going to be, the macro environment effect is going to be affected by COVID. Even for the companies that are being positively affected by COVID, we are advising our portfolio companies to be cautious and to plan for longer runways than usual. Our hypothesis is that getting funded is going to be harder in the next couple of years. That's in our base case scenario. So that means that for same level of valuation, you will need to hit higher milestones than before. That's basically, so that's why we typically we used to assess companies to have a minimum of 12 to 18 months runway. That was like the minimum. Right now, 12 sounds totally crazy. 18 is okay, and if you can plan for 24 months runway, I think it's way more. Is way smarter, even for those that are positively affected. So and that have consequence on the burn that you should be having at this point in time, the amount of money raised, etc. Because even as I said, obviously, if you are not being negatively affected by COVID, then it's even more important to plan for this longer runway and make sure that you keep your company funded, which is one of the main responsibilities of the CEO of a startup, and that's definitely a priority. Where we see a lot of opportunities, as we said, but we are at the same time we need to be cautious, and that is also why we differentiate very much when we talk to our LPs between how are the markets in which our companies are operating and how are the financial markets in which our companies get funded, which are very different topics to me. And you need to handle those two in a very cautious way. Let's say.
Building question here from the audience. For funding, do you see an emphasis on productivity, unit cost, or an emphasis on scalability and I imagine growth? So will it change for with current situation?
I think so. I think the funding is so the money it was happening already. I would say in the last 2-3 years there was a trend. There was bigger focus on unit economics and on more capital efficient business, people get super scared when all that WeWork thing happened, and also all the noise around Uber, and there was a lot of people talking negatively about those models with negative gross margins and all that. So that created a very negative sentiment around bad unit economics or non-capital efficient companies. So that was already happening, as I was saying before. Most of the things that are happening now were already happening. It's just a matter of acceleration. So in this case, it's also the case. It is also true that unit economics are becoming more important. It's not that if you are a pre-seed company, you don't need to have amazing, or seed company, you cannot have amazing unit economics most of the times. If you are relying on network effects, you are relying on economies of scale, you are relying on a number of things that you don't have because you are tiny. But you need that the go-to-market or the vision that you have or strategy you follow need to be way more conscious on how your unit economics look along the way. So investors are way more worried or less prone to invest in companies that use the balance sheet, use gross margin as a weapon. Yeah. That wasn't a strategy that was done before. Right now, that is hard. So it's valid. It's a great strategy if you have the money and if it works. So basically, but for instance, that kind of strategies are way more difficult to be funded right now, and that is a trend that we are seeing right now, and I think it's going to be happening the same in the next 1 or 2 years.
Okay, I will maybe change a little bit the focus here from COVID and this macro perspective to more to your experience in B2C in Iberia, and also taking into account the audience, the founders, and maybe I have 2 or 3 questions regarding Portugal and Spain and the differences. And so one of the questions is, at least in my perspective, Spain is very strong in B2C companies, B2C startups. You are a very good example of that, but we can look and there's interesting exits in the area. And now B2B is starting to kick in, at least we read about that. But so why is Spain more focused in B2C? Why do you believe this historically has been like that? And what can Portugal learn from that area? Portugal is more, or at least has more success cases in B2B. There are many reasons that we could discuss for that. There are also some good examples of B2C, but still, I think it's interesting to see this, to discuss this. Did you hear me? Jose, did you hear me? No.
Sorry, I broke. I guess it's maybe my connection. I lost the last part of the question.
Yeah, but basically is why Spain has so much success in the B2C when comparing to Portugal, that's more a B2B country, and the companies, well, the success cases are more on the B2B side.
But that's a great question. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer in a very accurate way. I think there is I think a snowball effect. So
Jose, we are having some troubles on your connection. Jose, hello? So Jose needed to leave. Are you here? So some technical issues. Please bear with us just a few minutes. We are restarting he's restarting his connection. Let me see.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, it's my computer, I think.
No problem.
Yeah, something happened. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well now?
Yes.
Yeah, you asked me about B2C versus B2B in Spain versus Portugal. To be honest, I haven't found a very scientific answer to that question. I think it's more a matter of snowball kind of effect, where there were a couple of success stories back in 2000, beginning of like 2005, with the likes of Privalia and Let's Bonus, and then was acquired by Amazon. Excuse me, Let's Bonus. Yeah, well, Let's Bonus, a couple of them. But to be honest, recently it's way more about the B2B, also in Spain. As you know, we invest across Europe, so we have our exposure to Spain is like 1/3 of our portfolio. But out of that, I would say less than half is B2C. So used to be, I think, was like the first wave was a lot of B2C. But it's no longer the case, I would say.
Okay. Another thing that we debate a lot regarding, our presence here in Iberia is some differences regarding the will to internationalize. This goal, it was a need because of the size of the market from day one. Is this changing, and do you is something that you focus on very early in the companies that you invest, or do you let them grow in Spain and capture more market before moving and having more risk going abroad?
That's a very, very good one. So definitely the mindset is changing. I think you guys at Portugal have a way better mindset than in Spain, in the sense that companies and the companies that we invest need to have a pan-European or global mindset from day one. That needs to be the case. We don't care if it's they are in Paris, in Milan, in Barcelona, Lisbon, whatever. That's a condition, and it's kind of mandatory for us to be able to invest. Otherwise, we live in very small countries, both Portugal and Spain, or even, I would say, even Italy or France. Unless you are in the US or China, I think in the tech world you need to have a global or continental mindset. So that.
Okay, guys, so we are probably having, again, some issues here with the connection. We are ending this session. We'll see if we can get Jose to reconnect, at least for us to thank him for his time. I would also want him to explain his new fund. So they just raised, or in this this year this new fund. I know a little bit more about it because it could be an opportunity for some of you. Well, let's wait 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can move to our final panel with. Let's see if it's now. Jose,
yeah.
I was saying. So, well, we are also reaching the end of the webinar. This is the usual technical issues that we have. But I would like to thank you in the portfolio. It's really great to have you. You are one of the experts in B2C and one of the co-investors that we really enjoy working with. And also we hope we can continue to exchange deal flow in the future. I was just saying that if you want to give 2 or 3 words regarding your new fund and how these guys can apply and talk to you.
Yeah, sure.
And if you already know.
Yeah, I hope my my connection works. Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. And yeah, for sure, anyone who's running a platform or is launching, founders that are about to launch or just launch a platform-based startup, feel free to, well, you can put us in touch, or they can actually contact us through our website. We invest in pre-Series A companies across Europe. We invest from $500,000 to up to 10 million in cumulative investment per company. And pre-Series A, as I said, and also only in platforms. That's important. So if you wanna get in touch, we will be more than happy.
Okay, Jose, thank you very much. We will join with you, and now we have also to our final webinar of the day. Thank you again, and let's keep in touch.